Hi girls, Sally here from Bridalicious. One of the things that makes me really sad is seeing people suffer from carbophobia. Carbohydrates are an essential part of your diet. In fact, of all the nutrients your body needs, carbohydrates is the highest percentage. It's the primary fuel source for both your brain and your muscles, which I think you'll agree are fairly important. If you've ever been on a low carb diet, then you'll probably be familiar with the symptoms of fuzzy head syndrome, overwhelming fatigue, and kind of crabbiness that accompany your brain and your muscles starving for fuel. A common misconception about carbohydrates is that when you stop eating them, you'll lose weight really quickly. Yeah, that is actually true to some degree, but often the initial weight loss from low carb diets is from the loss of water weight, because with every gram of stored carbohydrate is 3 grams of stored water. So lose stored carbohydrates and you'll lose water as well, which is often just an accomplishment in dehydration rather than true and lasting fat loss. Also, another commonly embraced approach to weight loss is cutting carbs in the evening. This too is a myth. Recent studies on cutting down evening carbs fail to show any direct causative link with weight loss, but rather they suggest that this approach simply reduces the overall calories that we consume, hence the weight loss benefits. After all, we eat about 80% of our calories after lunch. So as carbohydrate is the most necessary nutrient, it's essential that you don't spend your life hating or fearing carbs by being a carbophobic. Rather expend your energy on learning about the better sources, and if you're someone who responds better to low carb diets, then maybe explore a bit further if you do have some gluten or yeast intolerant, or potentially you suffer from insulin sensitivity from former carbohydrate abuse. Carbohydrates come from a variety of sources, including breads, grains, cereals, dairies, and fruit. Dairies, just dairy. A carbohydrate is made up of sugar molecules. The body converts most carbohydrates into glucose, which is an essential energy source that fuels both the brain, the muscles, the kidneys, and other tissues. Roughly, carbs can be broken down into 3 categories: starches, fiber, and sugar. Firstly, to discuss fabulous fiber. Fiber is your best friend when it comes to hunger control. Fiber contains 0 calories but helps to keep you feeling full. As mentioned in one of my previous videos on macronutrients, 2 things that help you feel full. The first is protein, which chemically sends a signal from your stomach to your brain to say you're full. And the second is the contents of foods in your stomach, of which water is the main player, followed by fiber, which slows down the process of digestion, therefore keeping food in your stomach for longer and hence contributing to that feeling full sensation you get and stopping you from overeating. Whole foods in all their naturalness tend to have lots of fiber, so up your veggies, up your fruit, your nuts, your seeds, your legumes and whole grains, as they have naturally a lot of fiber in them. The optimal diet endorses lots of whole foods rich in fiber, so by sustaining those healthy food choices into your flow phase of the program, you'll continue to support yourself with high fiber foods. Also look for foods that have got more than 5 grams of fiber per serve. Another significant factor to consider when selecting good carbohydrate choices is their GI. So the glycemic index, or GI, is a scientifically proven way to rank carbohydrate-containing foods according to how they affect your blood sugar levels. In other words, how quickly they're metabolized when compared to 1 gram of pure glucose. So foods with a low GI can protect you from weight gain and help you lose excess weight by toning down both your insulin and your blood sugar levels, which often make us and cause us to overeat or eat more. High GI foods are foods which the carbohydrate breaks down rapidly during digestion and ultimately release glucose quickly into your bloodstream. It's these foods that you want to try and avoid. Low GI foods are those which the carbohydrate breaks down slowly during digestion and ultimately releases glucose gradually into your bloodstream. So foods with higher levels of protein or fat or fiber are often lower in GI. So it's these foods that you want to include at each meal and snacks for optimal weight control. So to demonstrate this concept of GI, let me share with you 2 scenarios to show you the relationship between GI and meal frequency. Alright, so to give you an example of low GI versus high GI foods and meal frequency. I'm going to show you a little graph. So let's imagine on this axis is our blood sugar levels. So blood sugar often determines our energy levels, and our energy levels often determine our mood. So as much as they're not one and the same, they often have a pretty big influence on each other. And on this axis is time. So let's imagine we've got brekkie, we've got lunch, we've got dinner. So we're someone who eats 3 square meals a day, and we opt for high GI foods. So maybe for brekkie, we chomp into some cornflakes. They metabolize really quickly because they're high GI, but then we come back crashing back down again. For lunch, we might have a white bread sandwich, a bit of honey on it. And then for dinner, we eat most of our calories, and we're gonna have white pasta or white rice or white potatoes. So in this instance where we're eating 3 times a day, we're having high GI foods metabolize quickly, we're gonna get this sort of wave, massive wave and spike and trough and spike in our blood sugar levels, which often determine our energy levels, which often determine our mood. You might know someone at work, could even be yourself, that has this sort of eating pattern and therefore mood. You'll also notice afternoon 3:30itis slump. This is about where, for a lot of us women, we have that tendency to want to eat high GI foods like sugar, lollies, little caffeine hit, fizzy drink, just to give us that little boost when we're feeling low in the afternoon. So to avoid that, what we want to try and do is eat low GI foods as the main focus, but also you may want to consider eating more frequently. So smaller meals but more frequently is one approach that often works for people in terms of their hunger control. For others it doesn't necessarily work, so go with what works for you. But let's say for brekkie, instead of having your cornflakes, maybe you opted for low GI muesli with a bit of bran in there, a bit of yogurt, to keep your GI down because it's got protein and fats in it. For morning tea, you might have an apple coupled with a handful of almonds. For lunch, instead of your white bread, you might go a brown or grainy bread sandwich. Afternoon tea, maybe a muesli bar, which has often got your protein and carbohydrates mixed in together. And then for dinner, we're not feeling like we're ravenous, so let's just have a nice meal of salad, veggies, maybe some brown rice, maybe some sweet potato if you want, add a little bit of meat in there as well. And what you can see occurs, this is our high GI option, this is more of our low GI option. So what you can see here is that the troughs and flows are less extreme. You're not getting that 3:30itis slump, and it's a lot more slowly released energy that will sustain you throughout the day, again reflecting your energy and potentially your mood. So I don't know about you, but if I'm wanting to control my hunger, if I'm someone who actually does get lots of cravings for food or wants to manage my waistline, by controlling your blood sugar levels via eating lower GI foods and eating more frequently can often support you in that. So check out this week's Read and Reflect to learn the different ways you can actually switch to a low GI diet. So some of the high GI foods and their low GI alternatives. So how much carbohydrate do you need? For weight loss, it's recommended 3 to 5 grams of carbohydrates per kilogram of body weight. High intensity training you often need more carbohydrates for performance. But as carbs is the main fuel source for your muscles, it can sometimes compromise fat burn, as carbohydrate is the first fuel that your body will use before it turns to fat. So as part of your healthy carbohydrate intake, it's recommended that you eat 2 serves of fruit and 5 serves of vegetables each day. So your homework this week is, when looking at your nutritional information panel on items in your supermarket, look at the 100 gram column and shoot for consumables that have less than 10 grams of sugar. In other words, less than 10% of your sugar. So opt for low GI foods high in fibre this week, and see how you go.